Hey everybody, welcome back to White Mountain Approves. We're glad you're taking the time to tune into our broadcast. We talk about hiking in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the best around, as shown by the flocks of people that come from out of state to enjoy our mountains. So we're going to be talking about a hike that I went on, Mount Jackson, with the Pemi Search and Rescue Team. Before I jump into that, Dave, you got any words, greetings, say hello, whatever?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'll just echo what PK said. Certainly this weekend, President's Day weekend, it's busy. We went for a quick hike Saturday and the traffic wasn't bad, but there's certainly a lot of hikers out. Me and PK were just talking potentially about something tomorrow, and traffic's going to be a concern, especially on the ride home. So it's a great state. A lot of people come and see it.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that as we wind this talk down on the hike I did with the Pemi Search and Rescue Team. Actually, I'll just mention it now. That was a Sunday afternoon, so the close of a weekend. I got off of that trail at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and by the time I drove south on 93, the traffic just thickened up like you wouldn't believe. And by the time I hit Concord, it was probably a 9-mile bumper-to-bumper stop-and-go traffic jam that was just ridiculous. I mean, it was just stupid. So it happens, and anyway, so this is what happened. I had the good fortune of meeting Jamie, who's the vice president of the Pemi Search and Rescue Team. And he had given me an invitation to join the team on a winter full simulated rescue where they were going to be using a device called a Skeg. And the Skeg is actually I thought it was an acronym for something really cool. And it's just a combination of the words sled and ski. And so they made this Skeg, and now it's become synonymous with the company that manufactures these things. So I met them up by the Highland Center up on Route 302, right across from the Mount Jackson trailhead. And it was a cold day. It was going to be a cold day. It was about 6 degrees, just, on the road. And they started showing up. They rallied at the Highland Center, did their presentation, and then they came hiking up. Bright neon green jackets, really distinguishable. And I met them, and Jamie had at the last moment sent me an email saying that he had the flu and he was unable to attend, and that I would be in the good hands of one of their lieutenants by the name of Rusty. And so Rusty found me and introduced himself to me, and we hit the trail. And right off the bat, they had gotten 17 inches of fresh snow like 2 days before. The trail was packed down somewhat, but it was still a loose surface. So it was one of those days where if you wore snowshoes, it was going to be cumbersome. If you just went with spikes, you knew you were going to be slipping and sliding. Because I hate snowshoes passionately, I went with the spikes. Yeah. And I would say 3/4 of their team just went with spikes also. Wow. So I felt like, I'm going with them.
PK, how many of them were there?
There was about 12. I'm going to say like about a dozen.
Wow.
I never really got a good count, and so about a dozen. And so, Dave, you've hiked this trail numerous times, and you and I hiked it in the winter, and you know what it's like. It's steep, and it's a very narrow trail. You're talking snowshoers probably packing something down 16 to 18 inches wide, and that's it. If you stepped off of it, you were thigh deep in snow. And so we headed up trail, and one of the things that Rusty said is that at every intersection, at every junction, the team was to stop and to regroup just so that it didn't scatter out too much. So we started going up trail. We stopped at, I think it's called Elephant Head Lookout. We regrouped. We went up again, and we stopped at the Webster cutoff, or the trail that heads off the Webster. And then from that point on, they seemed to break up into 3 categories. There was kind of like these 4 guys that were, really going to it, and then a larger group, moderate, and then 2 girls that fell behind. And what I found out is when I started, I was with those first 4 guys, and then by halfway, I was with the larger group. And then about a half mile from the summit, I was with those 2 girls in the back, huffing and puffing and dying. Listen, they did not, they probably, for them, they were probably slowing it down a little bit. For my pace, man, it was like full speed ahead. These guys were really, making great time. I can't fault them for that because, if you need a rescue, time is of the essence, right? So But anyways, it was a great hike, and it was one hellacious workout because that's a steep trail. We got to the summit, and there's that crazy steep area. And it was all covered with ice, and I managed to get up where Rusty met me, kind of give me some coaching. Got up over that. The group was up there assembled, and it was freezing. I'm going to say at least like 15 below zero. It was so cold, it was actually like hurting my sinuses.
Oh, boy.
So I stayed up there for about 5 minutes, and it was really, really cold. And, we're taking pictures and we were chatting. And then finally, I don't know how long they planned to stay, but I got Rusty's attention, and I said, man, dude, this is ridiculous. I'm heading back for the trees. And I know that you and I climbed it. The cool thing, Dave, is we actually hiked it the year before on February 6th. Here it was a year later on February 6th, and I was hiking it with these guys. Wait, what was your remembrance of that time that we hiked it?
Oh, boy, the exact same. It was freezing cold. What really stood out to me, especially listening to your adventure with them, the day that me and you hiked it a year ago, it was forecasted to be very windy. When we got on the trail, it wasn't. It was nice. It was about 0 degrees. But when we crested that summit, the wind was ferocious. And as you remember, that was the famous day that I froze my hand, and you had to come to the rescue with your hand warmers. I couldn't get my hand back in my glove. It was so cold.
Yeah. It was cold, and I don't, that might have been colder, by 5 degrees than this day, but because that day I went over that first rock wall, and then there's probably like another 100 feet or 80 feet of, and I didn't even bother doing that. I was like, that was ridiculous. And so we started coming down, and there was a couple of guys on snowshoes ahead of me, and I'm saying that whole rock descent when you're coming off that dome, it was like ice. It was sheer ice with a little bit of blowing loose snow on it.
Yep.
So the first guy, boom, he went out, his feet went out from underneath him, and he's sliding down. The second guy, boom, he went out, and I'm like, well, thank God I don't have snowshoes. Next thing I know, I'm on my butt, I'm going down, and I didn't even look around behind me to see how many more of them, slid out, but it was a pretty gnarly. And then it's still really, really steep after that, and I ended up taking another fall and, butt sliding down the trail. And then I don't know how it happened, but I ended up in the lead. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to, slow these guys up. And I started moving at such a fast speed that I was long stepping it, almost running. And from times I was like skiing with spikes on. Now, I don't know how you do that, but that trail was I think so many people had butt slid on it that I was just like, it was crazy. And, I'm going to say within a quarter of a mile, I had absolutely fried my quads out.
Wow.
They were killing me, and I still had that whole thing to do. So I got out of the trail. I let them all pass me, and then I knew that they were going to meet up back at the Webster Cliff or the Webster Summit. It seemed like forever. I was in agony at that point, and it seemed forever. Rusty and another guy were very gracious, kind of hung back with me. I said, look, just go, guys. And they're like, no, we don't break up the team. And I'm like, all right. So we finally got back to that area. They patted it all down with their snowshoes to make a nice big training area. And then they started their Skeg training. So it's a piece of plastic, huge piece of plastic. They unroll it. They put a wool blanket down on it, and then they put like an accordion ground pad that you would sleep on, for camping. And they were like, hey, Ken, why don't you get in this? You'll be our patient. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm game. I thought it would be fun. I thought it'd be exciting. Then they start saying, you better put every piece of clothing that you have on because it's going to be freezing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was red flag 1, right? Then they're like, do you have goggles? I'm like, no. They go, well, you're going to get snow kicked in your face. I'm like, okay, that's red flag 2. And then I lay down in this thing, and they wrap me in the blanket, so my arms are by my torso. And then they start wrapping the plastic around me. And I'm telling you, man, I'm not super claustrophobic, but I'm claustrophobic enough to where I said, hey, guys, this is creeping me out. I can't think of the thought of being lowered down a mountain on a piece of plastic, and I can't move.
Yeah, you're strapped in.
It was not a good thought. So they were like, oh, no, this isn't for you then, so they got me out of there. And then there was another guy that volunteered to get in there. And I'm telling you what, man, they strapped him in like a caterpillar in a cocoon.
Wow.
And I was thinking, you know what? If my arms were out of it and I could like cross them and grab a strap, because there's probably 5 or 6 straps that go across your whole body and they just wrap you in that thing. Then they have a rope on either end for pulling you up inclines and then lowering you slowly down. And because the trail is like a luge, with the snow shoers pad, they just slide you down all the way.
Wow.
And it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. So after, this was just really informative and fun watching them go through this training. They're tying all kinds of knots and they're getting this stuff ready. I started freezing up because I was sweating like a dog, going up the mountain. And now we stood around probably for like 45 minutes. Yeah. So to be immobile for 45 minutes, you start getting really cold. So I started getting really cold. And I looked at my watch and it was like 3 p.m. and I still had another hour hike out and then a 2-hour that actually ended up being a 3.5-hour drive home because of the traffic. So I told Rusty, I said, hey, I know you guys still have more stuff to do. I need to bounce. So I solo hiked the rest of the way out, had another hellacious wipeout on one of those steep sections, ended up butt sliding for about 20, 25 feet down. I didn't even care. I came up to like a little 6-inch wide tree and I butted right up to it thinking, this is going to help me get up. And I grabbed the tree and I had nothing left in my legs to stand up. I mean, I pushed on my legs and pulled on my arms with everything I had just to get back upright again. But,
wow.
it was a great time. They are a fantastic group of volunteers, men and women both. Could never say enough about what they do, what they sacrifice. That was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. People were out. I'm sure all of the tourists and the skiers and the ice climbers and the hikers were all out having fun. And here are these guys giving up their Sunday to do this extreme training on a really cold, steep mountainside. So my hat is off to them. I salute them. They're a great group. And, hey, I pray nobody ever needs them. But if you do, you're going to have the best of the best coming to your rescue.
Boy, that sounds like a great training exercise they had. PK, how do you feel about their readiness in terms of getting out there and jumping on the trail and being able to get to somebody that may need help?
Yeah, so these guys, I know once I talked to Janie because he sort of oversees like who's doing what. And, depending on the mountain and the terrain and how many trails, if somebody's lost, they have to cover every trail.
Wow.
If it's somebody injured and they know right where they are, then it's a matter of like just rocketing up there as fast as possible to bring whatever. The idea is to get that person off the mountain as fast as possible to an ambulance. They do not do paramedic work. They don't try to right any wrongs or anything like that. They do have splints. So if an arm's broken or a leg's broken, they'll splint that leg. But I know there was one of the girls I was talking to when I started getting a little claustrophobic. And I said, hey, do you guys carry drugs to knock somebody out like me so I wouldn't have to, freak out being wrapped up in this piece of plastic? And she goes, no, we don't do that. Wow. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, if it ever happened to me, I'd have to make the decision of doing that or dying alongside the trail. But then I came up with a third alternative. I'm pretty sure I could bribe one of them to hike out really fast, go to Gorham, score some drugs.
There you go.
Come back, knock me into yesterday, and then bring me down the mountain. I would probably wait for that. But no, I think their readiness and the fact that they do these kinds of trainings all the time.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're Johnny on the spot, in a crisis and stuff like that. So, it was an awesome day. And actually, it was a beautiful day for a hike. It was sunny. The winds were like when we did it, the winds were ripping and it was really, really cold on the summit. But it was a phenomenal hike and I enjoyed the afternoon. I enjoyed being with them. I wished I could have had more time to individually interview them and get that kind of content for my book. But, that trail it's a narrow trail and there was no areas to group up and talk to one and then talk to another. Yeah. But great group of people. And
that's awesome. So I know, PK, that this is coming out after the video and episode on your hike with New Hampshire Fish and Game. But this actually took place before that. So I just want the viewers to know that.
Yeah, I did. It was about a week in advance. I did one on a Sunday and one the following week after on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and a lot of fun with both those groups. And hats off to them. They do a lot. They save lives. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, definitely. And PK, I'll put in the links to the show. I'll put a link to their pages if anybody wanted to send a donation or look at how they operate and just more about them. That would be great. I'll also put a link to It Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, which is the gentleman, Jamie, that you're talking about. So a quick shout out to them as well.
Yeah, and I also found out that the Pemi group, they're getting ready to celebrate their 20th. I think they started in 2005. So
that's incredible.
2 years away from doing that.
That's great.
And they're supported by donations. Only these guys buy their own gear. They buy their own equipment. I mean, I think maybe the jackets and the radios and things like that are supplied to them. But other than that, they're self-sufficient.
Boy, that's great.
Yeah.
Boy, the few serving many, no doubt. There's a lot of hikers out there, and unfortunately, there's a lot of accidents and folks that get lost or have mishaps. And it's great to know that there are teams that train regularly and get out there and are willing to help in all sorts of conditions, like that day being freezing cold. That's great.
And one of the things that kind of touched me was all the hikers that passed us. Every one of them stopped and were like, "Hey, thank you so much for your service." That's great. So everybody was very grateful for all the stuff that they do, which is cool because I'm sure that's the only thing they get are those pats on the back every now and then. So and also I'm sure the joy of knowing that they saved a life is going to be huge. But good group of people.
That's great. Definitely sounds like you had a great day.
Great day, great time. So hikers out there, again, I want to put a plug for the hiker safety card that you can get through New Hampshire Fish and Game. $25 for a person, $35 for the family. And it is an insurance policy that if you ever need a rescue, and especially if you need one because of negligence, they're going to bill you for it. But if you have a card, you will not get billed for it. Now, you don't need a card if you're a hunter or fisherman and you're buying a license, or if you have a snowmobile or a four-wheel vehicle that you buy a license for that's covered in that. But, Dave, you and Ian and Keith and I just recently, we tried to hike a mountain. The river was too swollen. We ended up going in the Flume Gorge and coming out. I mean, what did you saw? We saw people in skiers.
Yeah. We saw a whole family coming down. So, in PK, I just want to expand on that. That Flume area, which is open in the winter, they recommend it's only open to ice climbers because it gets really treacherous in there. But it's sort of a nice walk down to where the gorge is. But it's all packed snow, and given the rain, it's literally a sheet of ice. And as we were coming out, there's a family coming in, absolutely no forethought to appropriate footwear. They did not have any spikes. Some of them were in sneakers. It's just not something to be doing. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing. If you're slipping on ice in the parking lot, the trails are going to be bad, and traction is so inexpensive, $40, $60, whatever, you can get a good, something funny, and we can leave on this note, but something funny is a woman went past us and Ian looked at me and he goes, "That lady's wearing like a $1,000 jacket." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, that's, I think it's called Canadian Goose jackets." And I'm like, "Well, wait till that goose hits the ice, it's going to be flying."
There you go. That's truth. Yeah, that's something.
But anyways, hey, viewers out there, those who are listening to these broadcasts, please stay safe. Know the conditions. Do the research online. There isn't anything you can't find out online. Buy the bare necessities. Traction is important in these mountains in winter conditions. And snowshoes, too, because you're either going to be sinking up to your knees or you're going to be sliding on ice. So one way or another, you have to have the proper gear.
Yep. Absolutely. Good point, PK.
Yeah. All right. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in, and stay safe on the trails.
Take care.